Welcome to the Sunday worship service of the First Church in Boston, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Back Bay. Today's service is the traditional Flower Communion, led by Reverend Edmund Robinson, Interim Minister.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Church in Boston on this steamy early June day. Thank you for coming, all of you who are here in person and all those who may be watching on and listening on YouTube. As we do every Sunday, we live stream our services there, and you're welcome to drop in, but if you drop in there, you won't quite see the full effect of this remarkable sanctuary, postmodern sanctuary built in 1972. And after our first previous church had burned, this is the oldest church in Boston. It's also, in a way, the newest church in Boston. And we like to say, if you come down and look at the walls, it's the grooviest church in Boston. I said Charleston. I used to live there, alas. All right, we're doing Flower Communion. This is the 100th anniversary of the flower ceremony or communion. You can use whichever one C word you want to describe it. And I have a poem by one of my favorite poetry colleagues, ministry colleague, who also writes poetry. Her name is Lynn Unger. It's called A Gift. The middle of June, and I awake to rain, persistent enough to soak the ground and clear the air. Isn't this the best kind of surprise? The thing you wanted but couldn't get for yourself and didn't know that you could have. Already the frogs are singing, and the grass stretches its roots in rejoicing. And here am I, with my damp hair and empty hands, and nothing to say but, oh, and thank you. Once again, the world, my true love, has brought me flowers. And Mr. Robert Frost will take another perspective on flowers. Number 64 is our opening hymn. Oh, give us pleasure in the flowers today. seated. I'll light our chalice with the words from Leslie Paul Koschbau. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. And now we'd like to do the First Church Boston affirmation is in your order of service. We say it while standing in unison. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated. The announcements are in the next to the last page of your order of service. The probably most important ones is this: burgers out on the deck when we finish here. Come on out and have our picnic feast. Social justice values, the GBIO has an event on Monday, June 26th at 7. Please show up and help everybody understand that you care about housing. And then the last thing, farewell to Reverend Edmund. This will be a bittersweet Sunday for me. We will probably have services here, but we may have services in the chapel if it's really brutally hot. And we will say a few things to each other, and there may be some singing afterwards with light lunch. So we'd love to see you. Come by on next Sunday as well. And that, I think that's the announcements. Anybody else have announcements? No. All right. Sharing of joys and concerns. Testing. Good. So far. They say that you haven't become their minister until they've broken your heart. I feel not quite heartbroken, but I feel certainly a sense of apprehension at getting up on Sunday morning and not having this place to come to. So please understand that though I'm not going to be with you, I will be thinking of you, and you will be in my heart, all of you. So it's been a wonderful 2 years that we've had together, and we have held things together enough to get to a search, and a successful search, and then a calling of a brilliant new minister by a unanimous vote. I think that should be stuck up there with the other U's. Unanimous. That's all right. I mean, UUs, of course, as we know, can disagree on anything. So this is a really remarkable thing that you call the minister by unanimous vote. Okay, I will ramble no more. Who else?
Thank you. I want to share a joy for our fellow congregant who's featured in this morning's Boston Globe on the front page. Victoria Reed, who's the curator of Providence at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, has uncovered, and through diligently working, uncovered the true provenance behind a stolen Nazi work that the MFA found, and has successfully resolved that. And so if you get a chance to read the Globe and see that, that's great. What I love is the Unitarianism that she infused in her comments, particularly her forbearance and not blaming what people have to go through to survive in an evil world, which was part of the story. And to me, that's my understanding of the Puritan dilemma, isn't it?
Thank you.
Good morning. Okay, I have a concern that we are, three of us went to the last GBIO meeting and we said that we would have 8 people from the church that would go to the next GBIO meeting, which is on the 26th, and it's in, I think it's in a synagogue in West Roxbury. So it's easy to get to. And we would really, really appreciate if everybody could make put that on the calendar and try to make it, because it's really, really important to get this vote through. And how do you get votes through? By showing up and putting the fear and God into these representatives that we put in there. So let's do that. And I'm going to miss you, my friend.
This is for Joy. I don't know if it was already mentioned in the announcements that just came in from the greeters table, but my personal joy for Katie Lucas McWage, who is now an ordained minister and is settled and is going to be in Texas. And I think 10 years ago, we met building Your Own Theology. And she was new to UU, she was new to all this, and it's just so happy. I wasn't able to go, but it was just, this is the week of Pride, and it's also a week of joy. So I'm just very happy for Katie and Chris.
Your pride and joy. That's great. I should have mentioned that as I was talking, because I did go to her ordination yesterday at the Unitarian Church in Reading, and there was a nice crowd there. And the sermon was given by previous minister here, Stephen Kendrick.
Hello, everyone. I have a lot of joys this morning. I'll choose the pretty white ones. This opaque, because it's lovely looking. I want to thank you all for supporting the music that you have. I know that's a sacrifice. I know it's something that, you give your hard-earned money to this church for various things, and we are grateful for everything that you have decided as a committee and as a congregation to support what we do. My other great joy is the fact that we have assembled such a lovely group of people. They're not just lovely musicians and excellent singers, but they're just good people. And I think you can feel that when they come up and they give their joys and concerns to you. So I want to formally thank them for sticking together and doing amazing work. They go above and beyond. And if you wouldn't mind just giving them a little round of applause.
Seeing nobody else, I'll allow one last stone for all those joys and concerns which we hold in our hearts unspoken. Now, I believe Mr. Emerson is next. Is that right? Yes. $5.56.
We're going to do responsive reading, 556, and who but Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote this, so we can enjoy the reading as we go. All right, so you know your part. These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or to better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. There is no tomb for them. It is simple, the roses. It is perfect in every moment of existence. Before a leaf bud has burst, its whole life acts. In the full-blown flowers, there is no more. In the leafless roots, there is no less. Its nature is satisfied in its in all moments alike. But we postpone or remember. We do not live in the present, but we revered, lamented the past, or heedless of the riches that surround us, stand on tiptoes to foresee the future. We cannot be happy or strong until we live with nature and present above time. Thank you.
Hope and Martyrdom, a homily for Flower Communion. Here's a question. What do these people all have in common? Jesus, Socrates, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Michael Servetus, Francis David, Anne Hutchison, and Norbert Chopik. All were martyrs for what they believed in, what they taught and advocated. All were persecuted in their lifetime, and most were put to death. The word martyr is from a Greek word meaning witness. Each of the people I named just now were part of a larger movement, and their persecution and death served as an affirmation of their faith in that movement. A martyr is a special kind of hero. A hero can do great deeds of valor and change the course of history, but he need not represent a religious or political tradition. He need not be persecuted. He or she need not die. A martyr is always identified with some kind of movement, and a martyr is usually persecuted, and most are killed because of their association with that movement. Martyrdom is encountered in many world religions, but it has a particularly important role in Christianity. For in the 1st and 2nd centuries of CE, Christianity was persecuted fiercely by the pagan Roman state before Constantine converted Rome to Christianity in the 4th century. The promise of Christianity was eternal life, but it was one thing to advocate for it, and quite another to bet your own life on this bargain. The Romans put Christians in the arena with the lions and offered to the Christians that they would call off the lions if the Christians would renounce their religion. Some did, but many went serenely to their deaths with the lions, which made a powerful witness that these Christians actually believed that they would end up in heaven. This persecution gave rise to the idea of saints, people whose devotion to the Christian dogma was so firmly fixed that they went serenely to their deaths. The martyrs of the Roman era were enshrined by later generations of Christians, and the Christian holiday, All Saints' Day, was established to honor them. In a sense, the first Christian martyr was Jesus himself, and all of the subsequent Christian martyrs tended to be fitted into the narrative established by the Passion of Jesus. The martyrs to Roman persecution from those early days came to be called the saints invisible, since they could no longer be seen. By contrast, the people in one's own religious community who worked alongside one to make good things happen were called the visible saints. Everyone in early Boston was expected to be a visible saint, which was why John Winthrop used the expression "city on a hill" in his famous sermon. This came up a year ago in the hearing on the insurrections of January 6th, 2021. I expect that many of you tuned into those hearings, for they remind us of our transcendent values as a free people. The law enforcement officers who died defending the seat of U.S. democracy on January 6th are martyrs to that principle of our democratic government, expressed so eloquently by John Adams, a government of laws and not of men. That principle is worth defending, for our freedom depends on it. Though Christian martyrs are seen in the light of Jesus, not all martyrs are martyrs to religious truths. Socrates is a good example. He could not be a martyr in Jesus' line because he died 4 centuries before Jesus. The movement he represented was philosophy, and he was persecuted for corrupting the morals of the youth of Athens. In a sense, he was a martyr to truth, or at least the truth as it is found in philosophy. Most of the other people I've named here as martyrs were orthodox in their theology, but 4 of them represented liberal Christianity, our branch. Michael Servetus, who first developed the idea that the doctrine of the Trinity was not supported by the Bible, and who was burned at the stake for heresy in John Calvin's Geneva in 1553. Francis David, the bishop who converted King Sigismund, the city of Kolozsvár and Transylvania, to Unitarian thinking. but then was found guilty of pushing the doctrine too far away from Trinitarian Christianity and died in 1579 in a miserable cell in a hill fortress in the town of Diva, which I visited a dozen years ago. Anne Hutchinson, member of this church who preached salvation by faith, and for it was excommunicated by the church and banished from the Massachusetts Bay settlement, though her death a few years later was not directly related to the persecution. And the last martyr to liberal religion was Norbert Chapek. Chapek was born a Roman Catholic, but he rejected that faith at an early age and became a Baptist minister. As a young man, he traveled widely as a Baptist evangelist, from Saxony to Ukraine. But he became more liberal, and his writings attracted unfavorable attention from the German authorities. In 1914, just before the First World War, he and his wife and 8 children left Europe for the United States. In the U.S., Chapek edited a Slovak language newspaper and pastored a Slovak Baptist church in New Jersey. But his leanings were liberal, and he soon parted ways with the Baptists. His first wife died shortly after they came to America, and he met and married his second wife in 1917. Chapek resigned as a Baptist minister in 1919, and he and his wife joined the First Unitarian Church of Essex County in Orange, New Jersey. They were delighted with Unitarianism and determined to bring it back with them to their homeland, newly independent after World War I. They returned to Prague in 1921 and established a church called Unitaria. Unitaria, isn't that a nice name? Unitaria at the foot of the Charles Bridge. The early worship services were called lectures. The minister wore no robes, and most of the ceremonial aspects of religious ritual were absent. There arose some criticism that there was no spiritual aspect to the religious gathering, and that is why Chapek developed the flower communion. In a few minutes, we have our flowers in hand. I want to call us all to think about hope amid hatred. Norbert Chapek was dangerous to the Nazi regime because he preached hope. He preached the inherent worth and dignity of all people. That regime killed him. But history has the last word. And history has repudiated the Nazi claim that some races are better than others. That claim was at the foundation of the rebellion of southern states in this country a century earlier, a claim enshrined in the flag flown by that short-lived and racist regime. History has repudiated that claim, and that repudiated was restated perhaps most loudly and clearly in a mass rally 8 years ago after the Mother Emanuel shootings in Charleston, where Mayor Joe Riley, who became mayor when I moved to Charleston in 1975, and only stepped down a couple of years ago, proclaimed, quote, "Our diversity is not a weakness, it's a wonderful strength. This disillusioned killer is on the wrong side of history. His ideas, long discredited about racial superiority, are in the dustbin of failed civilization," unquote. Hope, said Emily Dickinson, is the thing with feathers. Today, let it be the thing with petals, which you will shortly hold in your hand. In February 2009, on Charles Darwin's 200th birthday, I've told you this story before, but I was serving at our UU Church in Chatham on Cape Cod. As you know, I'm fascinated by the relationship between religion and science. And to mark this special occasion, our church hosted a very distinguished intellectual figure who also has been a dear friend of mine for decades, cell biologist and religious naturalist Ursula Goodenough. The title of her lecture was Darwin and the Sacred. Ursula Goodenough was also here recently at Easter. We did a nice religious naturalist take on Easter. Another distinguished person in the audience that day was Gene Pickett, former president of the UUA, who was a member of the Chatham congregation. In the question and answer session afterwards, I asked a question about whether the universe had a purpose, to which Dr. Goodenough replied that Darwin considered that question was blowing in the wind. Gene Pickett followed up and interjected, but the purpose of a flower is to bloom, is that not To which Dr. Goodenough, the cell biologist, replied, "Oh, the purpose of a flower is to make nookie. No, flowers are reproductive organs, and the purpose of the rest of the plant is to get the flower going. That's one way of looking at life." I think the point Jean was making was like what Emerson said in the responsive reading we did today. The beauty of the flowers makes no reference to past or future. It lives in the present. In his well-known poem, The Rhodora, Emerson wrote, "If eyes were made for seeing, then beauty is its own excuse for being." If eyes were made for seeing, then beauty is its own excuse for being. Yet Dr. Goodenough's response to Jean Pickett stated the scientific truth that all things are connected. The flower is part of the reproductive system of the plant, and you and I and the bees and other insects are all part of that system. We all know that attraction, love, is what makes human reproduction work. None of us would be sitting here if our parents hadn't been attracted to one another. But it is humbling and grand to contemplate that the attractiveness of the flower is what makes plant life possible. The flower makes nookie. The nookie makes more plants. More plants make more flowers. Life goes on in a grand march and will go on long after we are gone. Seamus Heaney writes, "History says don't hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme," unquote. Seamus Heaney. The tidal wave of justice may be fueled by the blood of martyrs who stand up for the transcendent values which need defending. Let's remind ourselves that the Bible lesson being taught at Mother Emanuel on that faithful Wednesday night so many years ago was Mark 4:16-20, the parable of the sower and the seeds. Some of the seeds fell on rocky ground and did not grow. Some were choked by weeds, and yet some fell on fertile ground and grew and blossomed. Jesus intended for the seeds to represent his teachings, the most important of which had to do with loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you. Some seeds fall on rocky ground, some are choked by weeds, but some fall on fertile ground and grow into flowers like the ones you're going to be holding in your hands in a minute. If there is hope, it is that we can break out of the cycle of retribution and recrimination. It is that love will overcome hate. Hope is the thing with petals, which you're going to hold in your hands in just a minute. So we proceed now to the flower communion itself. By way of introduction, children of the earth and sky, we are nurtured, sustained, given warmth and light from above and below. Supported by earth's strong, firm crust, we build our homes till the fields plant our gardens and orchards. When we turn from self and seek to be aware, we will find holy light in human faces, in blossom, birdsong, and sky. Then earth is truly our home, and we are one with all earth's creatures, parents of earth's children yet to be. Now we're going to sing hymn number 63, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers, to the tune of Good King Wenceslas. We're going to do the black, okay.
Nobody told me until this very moment.
Spring
You may be seated. The Unitarian Universalist Flower Communion service, which we're about to celebrate, was originated in 1923, 100 years ago, by Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. On the last Sunday before the summer recess of the Unitarian Church in Prague, all the children and adults participated in this colorful ritual, which gives concrete expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our liberal faith. When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Čapek's gospel of the inherent worth and beauty of every human person to be, as Nazi court records show, quote, too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live, unquote. Dr. Čapek was sent to Dachau, where he was killed the next year during a Nazi medical experiment. This gentleman suffered a cruel death, but his message of human hope and decency lives on through his flower communion, which is widely celebrated today. It is a noble and meaning-filled ritual we are about to recreate. This service includes the original prayers of Dr. Čapek to help us remember the principles and dreams for which he died. Whenever Dr. Čapek conducted his flower communion in Prague, he would say this as he consecrated the flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, the messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of the most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship. But may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in the world. It is now time for us to share in the flower communion. I ask that as you each in turn approach the communion baskets, you do so quietly, reverently, with a sense of how important it is for each of us to address our world and one another with gentleness, justice, and love. I ask that you select a flower different from the one you brought that particularly appeals to you. As you take your chosen flower, noting its particular shape and beauty, please remember to handle it carefully. It is a gift that someone else has brought to you. It represents that person's unique humanity and therefore deserves your kindest touch. Let us share quietly in this Unitarian Universalist ritual of oneness and love. You may come forward. Listen now to Dr. Chopik's flower communion prayer. In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree, and in the hearts of men and women the longing for people living in human love. In the name of the highest, in whom we move and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister what they are. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice, let us renew our resolution, sincerely to be real brothers and sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges one from another. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. Now I call us to the offering for the advancement of this missions of this church.
If you'd like to support the work of this church with a financial donation, you may write out a check to First Church Boston and mail it to 66 Marlborough Street, 02116. You can also donate via text. Simply text the dollar amount, 5, 10, 20, etc., to 617-917-5610. You will receive confirmation by email. Thank you.
Never
house is the worship of the altar service. Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the water of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn, number 305, De Colores.
The choir will sing the first verse in Spanish, and if you know Spanish and love it, please feel free to sing along with them, and then we'll sing all three verses in English, just for fun.
John Murray, the founder of Universalism in America, said, "Go out into the highways and byways, give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of men and women. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach the kindness and everlasting love of God. Amen. Blessed be." You may be seated.
please feel free to join us live each Sunday at 66 Marlborough Street, at the corner of Berkeley Street in Back Bay. If you would like more information about programs, services, or membership at First Church, please visit the website www.firstchurchboston.org or send an email to office@firstchurchboston.org. Thank you.